All right, so with that in mind, our theme for the month, for the last time, is Pulled by Vision, and our contemplative meditation will be conducted by Susan, with Jackson doing the music. So with that in mind, Susan, it's all yours.
I believe bless you. I believe the title of today's talk is Stay on Spirit. And when I was thinking about that, the word consistency came to me. So I found a reading in Practice the Presence by Joel Goldsmith. And it's nothing that we haven't heard before, but I just thought maybe some different words, different phrases might resonate in a little different way. So I invite you all to get comfortable in your chairs, and if you feel it, you can close your eyes and just take these words in and contemplate them for the minute of silence. The student of spiritual wisdom cannot go through his day satisfied that he has read some truth in the morning, or that he is going to hear some truth in the afternoon or evening. There must be a conscious activity of truth going on all the time. That does not mean that we neglect our human duties and activities. It means that we train ourselves to have some area and consciousness always active in truth. Whether we look out at forms of nature, such as trees, flowers, or oceans, or whether we are meeting people, we find some measure of God in each experience. We train ourselves to behold the presence and activity of God in everything around us and abide in that truth.
Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. Be still and know.
And I know that since there is no place that God is not, we are all God. We are individualized expressions of the one life, the love, the presence, and the power. And I know that as we come together today to celebrate not only our uniqueness, but our unity, I know that every heart is lifted up. And we do see God when we look in each other's eyes. We do see God when we look at a flower or a tree. We see God in the sky and the earth and in all that surrounds us. And I know we walk in this consciousness. We live in this consciousness. And as we do, we lift others around us. And so I know that today's talk will lift our hearts, will open our minds, and will lift us a little bit higher in our own consciousness. And knowing that this is perfect and knowing it is good, I simply let it be. And so it is.
Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know.
Thank you, Jackson. And now let's welcome Reverend Angelica.
Thank you, Jackson and Susan. You did my talk, so we're done. So this whole idea of state on spirit, when I first read this title in the notes that the Global Vision people put out, I kept hearing that song, that old song that says something about, I got up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. And then Ricky Byers took it and made it, I got up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. And what a wonderful thing to think about. How many of you woke up this morning with your mind on God? The normal thing for a lot of people to do is wake up and think, oh God, today I have to do blah, 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 right? Or we drag up the old problems from yesterday or last week or even from our childhood. Or we wake up and we don't realize that when we do that, we're setting the tone for our day. And what tone do you want for your day? Do you want it to be complaining or do you want it to be love and joy? Personally, I like the idea of love and joy. So a statement from our global vision is, we see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. Emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. That is so important because for me, I look out here and I see there's God, there's God, there's God, there's God. God is absolutely everywhere. And even if there was nobody sitting in this room, I would still look out and know that the energy that is in this room, that is making up everything, even those things that we call inanimate, is still spirit. All there is spirit, this divine energy. And we're consciously, constantly being called to a higher state of consciousness and action. You know, when I look back on my journey through the science of mind, I realized that when I first got into it, I was already into spirituality in a pagan sort of way, and found that this fit with what I needed at the moment. But originally, I was always treating for things like my right and perfect mate, or more money, or somebody in my life to change, or things like that. And I hardly ever treat for any of that stuff anymore. I mean, I treat for people when they ask me to, and I treat for our country, and I treat for our planet, and mostly I treat for knowing that this too is God. Absolutely everything is God. Everything. So I have three ideas again this morning, as I usually do. My first one is, We are the channels of divine energy on this planet. Each one of us is. Dr. Holmes says, we are in the water of infinite life as the fish is in the ocean. The spirit of life is all around us. It flows through us. It permeates everything. We're swimming. We're spirits swimming in a field of spirit. All there is this divine energy. And so I want to talk to you for a moment about the idea that we're dealing with right now, the pandemic. That too is God. Now, how that could be, I mean, I can't explain any of that. I just know that absolutely everything is divine. So divine energy is happening in the pandemic just as it is happening in us. We're building it by being afraid of it. I know that so well, that idea. I didn't think I was afraid of it until last week I told you my story about going and getting another test with having the cough and all that, the cold for 2 weeks. And somebody said to me later, I never told the ending of the story. And I said, what was that? And I said, well, what did the test come out? Well, it was negative, of course. But what I was recognizing was how fearful I was, and I hadn't been admitting it. And that's how you get rid of fear. I remember reading somewhere years and years and years ago is that if you dream about a dragon chasing you, you turn around and you face it. And it dissipates. Or it eats you. So the thing that we're afraid of, though, is not the disease or the pandemic. What we're afraid of is dying. What I was afraid of was dying. So I've had this number, this age number in my head since I was a teenager. 92. That's when I'll go. That's when I'll decide to leave. And maybe, maybe not. It was reaffirmed for me when I went to India, because in India, every hotel has an astrologer's office. And in the Vedic astrology, they tell you when you're going to die. And I remember Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, who has the Seattle Center, coming out of the astrologer's office, and I'm sitting there waiting for my turn, and she says, oh my God, they tell you when you're going to die. And so he starts his thing, and he told me 88. I said, no, it's going to be 92. He said, well, why do you think that? And I said, because that's what I got when I was a teenager in a meditation. I would be 92. And I know that in having met my birth mother, etc., there are very long-lived relatives. Even though I know that I'll leave this planet, choose to leave at 92, those couple of days when I went to get that test and got the results, which was actually only 2 days, there was so much fear there. And I thought to myself, why am I afraid of dying? I know that I am a channel of divine energy on this planet, and I know that this energy doesn't end when I end, when my physical body ends. In fact, I remember reading a channeled work years and years and years ago by Emmanuel, who somebody said, what is death? And they said, death is like taking off a tight pair of shoes. Most women know what that feels like. First thing you do when you get home, get those shoes off, right? Now it's the bra, but So, we are already channels of divine energy on this planet. This is the next thing that comes up, is that we're not the only thing that are channels. Everything is a channel. Absolutely everything. Our jobs, our everything that we consider outside of us, all of that is also a channel for the divine. And we don't want to confuse those channels with the flow. And the other day, I don't remember who I was talking to, but somebody gave me an acronym for flow, which was fully F-L-O-W. Fully letting out worry. I thought, oh, that's a great one. And that's what you have to do to be in that flow of spirit, don't you? You have to let go of your concerns. You have to let go of your worries, your doubts, your fears. Dr. Holmes says in Ideas of Power, you are as free as your thought. You never deal with conditions, you deal with mind. So as a human race, we have collectively accepted that there is a pandemic going on and that it keeps having all these variants and that it keeps getting worse and worse and easier to get. And so what happens? That's what we get to experience. My feeling is if we, and I spoke about this last week, let go of the fear. Yes, I know we have to follow the science, as Max says, but not from a fear-based place, from a place of compassion for each other. So everything is a channel of the divine. So this is how you stay in that flow of spirit. Your mind is stayed on spirit. And my ideas for that is you need to forgive, redirect, and declare the truth. Because a lot of the stuff that we're carrying around with us is stuff that hurt us in some way, caused change in some way in our lives that wasn't comfortable. Well, we really got it in the last couple of years that change is really the only thing there is. Everything's going to change. I looked at my goddaughter's little baby a couple years ago, and, here's this precious new soul, and so sweet, and I could feel that energy. He's 2 now. That energy has changed. And he looks like a little boy. He doesn't look like a baby anymore. And all of us went through that. I look at myself in the mirror now and I think, how did I get to be this age? How did I get to look like this? Because in my mind, I'm still tall, thin, voluptuous, with really long hair. Dr. Holmes says, there is a center in you that already knows. Develop the consciousness that flows from this center, for it is the secret place of the Most High within us. So whatever it is that we need to forgive in our lives, I think this is what this pandemic is giving us the opportunity to do, to really look at ourselves, to really look at our consciousness, to really look at where we want to go with this. So forgive whatever it is that you need to forgive. Anything you've been holding on to, you've been taking up space in your mind that doesn't need to be taken up. You can put other things in there, so forget. Redirect your thoughts. As soon as you figure out that you're thinking a certain way, I went through this whole journal. I must have 10 pages on redirecting my thoughts from being afraid of dying to, so what? It's part of life. I am not going to die. The I am that I am will never die. And my personal belief is that we get to do something else after this. Even in the chapter on immortality in the textbook, Dr. Holmes talks about immortality, that in truth we are all immortal, that we just develop another body around us. So redirect your thoughts about whatever it was that you needed to forgive and whatever it is that's making you afraid right now. And declare the truth. And the truth is, all there is God. That's it. All there is God. And so that means you have to know what God is to you. If you still have the old God that's the punisher, or I remember in Catholic school, we were told that God sees everything. And sometimes I would go to sleep or try to go to sleep, and I would see these eyes, thousands of eyes, just looking at me, watching me, looking for when I'm going to do something wrong, when I'm going to sin, right? So that God has to change. If you still got the old judging God, change it to a loving God. And when Susan was doing her, it was when Edward was doing his meditation this morning, I remembered this thing that I've talked about, told this story before, but I'm going to do it again. When I first got to Honolulu, I was looking for a job. And, I had come out of a job where I was the head of the data processing department. I was making really good money. And I get to Hawaii, and all the jobs I applied for, they said, you're too qualified. Or they wanted to give me, the basic salary, not what I felt I deserved. And I remember being so frustrated that I thought, I need to do something to get myself out of this frustration. And I was driving down the street, and a big sign shows up that says Foster Gardens. And I thought, a garden, oh yes, this will be good. So I go in, I drive in, and I'm wandering around this beautiful garden, just beautiful. I mean, it had all the, Hawaiian plants that I wasn't very familiar with at the time. It was just gorgeous. And I'm following this huge hedge, and I turn the corner on this hedge, and I realized that a room had been made in this garden with this huge hedge, and there was the door to go in. And so I went through the arbor thing to go in, and at the very end, it's probably about 2 of these rooms long, at the very end is a gigantic statue of Buddha. And I thought, wow, look at that. And I'm still, even though I'm enjoying this garden, I'm still in my mind about not being able to get a job, and I gave up everything and moved to Hawaii, and I can't find anything, and the whole cycle. And I go in and I see this Buddha, and it's so beautiful, and I walk up to this Buddha, and the facial expression on Buddha was absolutely beautiful. It was so peaceful. And I went, how do I get that peace? And I heard, true peace is the love of God. And I thought, oh shit. And I walked over to this side, excuse my language, walked over to the side, sat on this bench, and thought, I'm on this cycle of, I've done everything. I've studied, I've prayed, I meditate, I do everything. I really love God, blah, 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 blah. But still, things aren't working in my life. And I'm going through all this, and again I hear, true peace is the love of God. And I'm looking at this face on this Buddha that is so peaceful, and I want that so badly right at that moment. And again I hear, true peace is the love of God. But I heard it in a different way. I heard the same sentence, but what it translated to was, true peace is letting God love me. Accepting the love of God. And that changed everything in that moment. And so I want us to think about this for a minute. Ask yourself, when you're doing that mouse wheel, hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, of thoughts that don't want to let you go, are you letting God love you in that moment? Are you letting the universe, not an entity out there somewhere, but the whole universe, which the whole universe is God, are you letting the universe love you? Are you accepting that it does? Because to me, this is how you get to this place where you really know the center that is already in you. And the consciousness then that flows from you is love. If you believed you are loved, you love everything. So I've been trying to figure out how to love that little picture of a COVID cell. It looks like a dog toy, actually. You know? So let's just know that we can do this, that we can move out of where we have been in our minds, in the fear place or in the angry place or wherever it might have been, and allow our minds to be stayed on spirit. We lean into this flow. The flow of the divine, the flow of love. Infinite Spirit is expressing itself as us right now in powerful, innovative ways. We trust the divine Spirit within us. We listen to it. We never give up, no matter how compelling the circumstances. And boy, that for the last year and a half, these circumstances have been very compelling. But we can't give up. In shifting our focus, we put the world in perspective. And what should we have right now? What feeling should we have for our brothers and sisters all around the planet right now? Compassion. Absolutely. You know, I had said when I first got here that my feeling was that we're going through this massive transition period, and that on this end of the transition is the old belief system, which is might is right. And I wasn't sure what the new transition, what we were transitioning into, but I knew it had something to do with compassion. And we are. It's like this is the end piece of this transitioning thing. Spirit as love, fairness, justice, equity, truth is all flowing through us as divine revelation. Now is the time for us to listen to the voice of our vision. We are the ones that the world is calling for. So let's keep our minds stayed on this truth. If you knew how powerful you were, you would allow yourself to be stayed in spirit, stayed as spirit. This small little group this morning is powerful enough to change the consciousness of humanity. But it takes work. It takes paying attention to what we're thinking about. Because it all starts with us, within us. So let's say this affirmation, and then we'll go into treatment. I am so grateful for knowing Spirit is always with me, always calling to me to trust in the creative flow of the universe. Spirit moves me forward, and I follow joyfully. So gratefully I acknowledge this truth, that God is love. And that is something that our heart and our spirit has longed for. And now, because we know that since there is only God, then there is only love, that is what we are. So we allow ourselves to remember that right now we're in a live-in relationship with the divine. And that relationship is sacred and holy and powerful. And so I know for each one of us that we allow ourselves to feel the love wash over us. To any moment that we're feeling out of center, we stop and we breathe and we feel the love. Because it is always with us. Absolutely always with us. And I know in this feeling of love that we let ourselves be the channel for love out into the world. we let go of all of our fears. We let go of all of our angers and resentments. We let go of everything except knowing that who we are is spirit. Spirit in form. And how wonderful it is to get this, to really get it. Because as we really get that, and get that we are loved, and we are loving, then the whole world changes. And so I declare for us, using the first person, that I am absolutely willing to be a transformational change agent in this world. I am willing to do the work necessary in my consciousness to uplift, up-level the consciousness of humanity. And I know that as I do this, others join me in it. I'm joining others until finally we've created that point in time, that point in consciousness where absolutely everything now lives not by fear, but by love. So I celebrate us this morning, knowing that each one of us got something to use for this next wonderful week of our spiritual adventure called life. And that whenever we become afraid, we allow ourselves to remember that fear is not necessary. And we take a breath and we feel the love of the universe fill us up so that we can go out and share it with a sense of joy and a sense of knowing that the work we're doing in consciousness is not just for ourselves, but for the whole world. And how grateful I am to know that we're willing to do this work, not just to make our own lives better, and they will be, continually getting better all the time, but for the betterment of absolutely everyone. How grateful I am to this one powerful presence that is expressing as each of us, that is loving each of us so much that it became us, to experience life as us. How grateful I am for absolutely everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. So I let go and I let God do its amazingly powerful work in, through, and as all of us, knowing it is good, knowing it is all God, and so it is. This morning we have a wonderful thing happening because we get to experience Anna Hamilton this morning. So let's give her a hand. Thank you, Anna. Oops.
perfect start to let them dance, and it made me smile. These simple things, and for just a while the world was alive. The world was love, and all was well. Laughter rang just like a bell, and the world was love. On a windy day, in my